Hello, my fellow Devil Hunters. The time has come, and so have I. Today I'll be ranking all the bosses of Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, and this will be a ranking based on their quality and not their difficulty. But like in my previous boss rankings, which I might link some of those in the description, difficulty may play a factor in quality. Like if a boss is way too easy, I might hate it, or if it's way too hard, I might make a note of that. But it could also make it better if it's hard, of course. But anyway, I'll be getting into this ranking, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. I've had a couple playthroughs of DMC4, but I haven't done a Dante Must Die playthrough. But I recently completed the game again in Son of Sparta with both Virgil and Nero and Dante, so you kind of have an idea of my experience of the game. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, and coming in at last place is going to be really the only boss I hate in this game, and it's going to be the Savior. There are redeeming qualities of this fight. There are a couple, but they do not outweigh any of the bad for me at all. He really just feels like a worse version of a Bayonetta one boss, all the platforming you do around the arena. Also, I have to say, I really don't having to damage all the blue bubbles in this guy to do damage, since part of what I really like about Devil May Cry is that you just hit him and he's wherever you want to when it deals some damage. And also, I have to say, some of the blue bubbles you have to destroy are very hard for me to get hits on. And you have to perfectly land a lot of the long range attacks to get the perfect target lock. And some of them weren't really intuitive for me to get, even when he was stunned. Where I was just confused where the next one to hit, for example, was. And the constant platforming in this fight really wasn't my style, as I prefer a more traditional boss fight where you just hit a boss anywhere and it doesn't damage, of course, which again is what I really like about Devil May Cry. I will say though, on the positive of this fight, I do find dodging his laser and missile and melee attacks while enemies are on the platform to be a decent bit of this fight. I like that you can even stun him through using traps at the right moments. And when you're on top of his arm, I do find it a bit more fun because the attacks kind of come at a closer range and you're able to do some melee damage, which I like a lot. Also, like the bit where you finally when you get to the one top platform after doing enough damage to him, and he rises up, so you can do a lot of beat down damage on his head and body, where I was able to get some good combos in with Dante. And that's definitely easily my favorite part of the fight, but it doesn't save it for me. And I kind of wish it was just when you got to that point, it would just change the boss fight, so he'd be there until you basically got rid of his entire health bar instead of you having to do everything all over again. I think that would definitely save this fight for me, at least a little bit. It'd probably still be my least favorite in the game, but that's just a way I think it could have been improved. And overall, I consider this guy a D tier fight, and he's by far the worst in this game for me. So on to the next boss. All right, now that we got the savior out of the way, we're gonna go to our second worst fight, which this one's nowhere near as bad as the savior for me. It's gonna be the first fight of Agnus, or the electric floor room, I guess I'll call it. And I have to say, this boss is pretty simple with it just being a room with sword enemies trying to kill you as Agnes electrocutes the floor. And that being said, though, I don't think the simplicity of this fight really makes it bad. I think a lot of people trash this fight a bit too much. It's not that good of a fight, but there's nothing really annoying about it. I actually find throwing the swords to be pretty satisfying with Nero's Buster when he plays Nero, and you can even a sword slash Agnes at the edge of the arena, which I think makes it so you don't have to necessarily rely entirely on throwing the swords, which I think is a good mechanic. I will say my main critique of this fight is the target lock in any Devil May Cry game isn't the best, and it's a little tricky to get to the exact enemy you want. Where the amount of swords in this fight that are trying to missile launch at you, it sometimes becomes tricky to grab the one that's about to stab you, where you end up grabbing another one by mistake, which can lead you to taking unnecessary damage in this fight, which that is my main critique. Also, sometimes it's a bit tricky jumping back on the middle of the floor from when the floor shocks itself if you're too far away from it, which is okay for difficulty, but I do find it a little annoying because it feels a bit slippery, you can barely be off of it and take a serious amount of damage, where I just maybe it could have been a little bigger, and I think this fight might be a little better. And that's all I really have to say. I don't really care for this fight too much, but It definitely really isn't that bad. There are, again, like a few critiques I have of it, and I'm overall going to give it a C ranking where it's not terrible like the Savior fight, but it's not anywhere near as good as any of the other boss fights in this game. And now on to the next boss. All right, coming in eighth place is going to be the first fight with the Pope. I mean Sanctus. I had to have that little joke there. And I have to say this guy is pretty solid, but I critique the Savior being part of this fight a lot. Where this is why I separate it from the fight later in the game that I really enjoy. Like, I just feel like the Savior ruins the balance of this fight. Overall, though, I will get to Sanctus, and I have to say, beating down on Sanctus' shield with him flying away, I think is actually a really fun fight. Some people I know don't like this fight, but I personally find it fine because it's you don't have to do a ridiculous amount of damage to the shield to get him out of it. And I have to say, grabbing his bells to anchor towards him, I feel like is a good mechanic to close the gap, especially with Nero and Virgil can do this as well, which I like. I haven't fought him with any of the other characters, so I really can't critique this at all. But I still think it's a cool mechanic, and I'm kind of glad it returns actually in Devil May Cry 5 with the Artemis boss fight, which I know is liked a lot more than this one. And I have to say, I like his individual air attacks, like his one where he shoots the ground, sending shockwaves that missile towards you. I think is a good attack, and the one where he shoots like a few beams in the air is pretty cool. Along with the one where he shoots like all the lasers from the sky. That one's a little tricky to dodge, but I think it looks really cool. And also the massive beam he shoots toward the ground, like, is pretty good. Especially if you dodge it, you can get a lot of free hits on him, which is usually enough for me to like get his shield down all the way. Which I think just him having this much variety makes him pretty fun. Again, my main critique of this fight is the Savior being a part of it, and he's not so bad when you first get to him, like with the phase change. Like all he does is a punch, where his punches really aren't that annoying, but because they're fairly easy to dodge, not too difficult. But my main critique is when you get like Sanctus' shield down, but you don't manage to knock him to the ground. He constantly goes to the Savior and does like that free hit, but then he just regains his shield, and I have to say this really ruins the flow of the fight for me. I feel like a way this fight could have been better is if you dodge the Savior successfully and get a few hits on him, that Sanctus would get knocked down and you'd be able to get some free hits on him. And there'd be no reason for me to wreck this fight separately if this was the case, but overall, since it is, it cements this guy's like lower spot in the list. He's not a bad boss. He's still pretty good. Like this game has mostly all of its bosses are pretty good, except maybe the again the Savior and I'd say the first fight with Agnus, which I rank below this. But I'm kind of in the middle of that, whether that's bad or just okay. And let's get on to the next boss. All right, coming in our number seven spot is going to be Angelo Agnus, or the second fight with Agnus. I have to say that this guy's pretty good. His health absorption attack really makes it so you can't mess with this guy. And his summons can be a minor annoyance, particularly when he summons missiles at you, and also when he summons those annoying swordfish enemies. But the swords that he summons, like when he fights you, makes this fight a little more fun. And the summons aren't bad at all. Like they just make the fight a little harder, which I actually like a little bit. I will say those swordfish are really annoying enemies, though, especially when you're not playing as Nero. And again, like the swords being able to be turned against him, like when you're playing as Nero and you just throw them back at him, is a really satisfying mechanic for a boss fight. Like it's done a lot better than the first fight for Agnus. Also, I have to say the attacks Agnus does with his dual swords are pretty fun to counter, and especially the one where he charges an attack up and he does like a spinning blade attack is especially deadly, and that's an attack I really like. And also the charge attack he does is pretty deadly, and I like it because he can do like a health steal on you, which I feel makes this fight a lot harder, especially if you aren't really good at dodging yet. And it adds like a fun deal of difficulty for this fight, which really it doesn't really matter when you're like more skilled at the game, but especially in my first playthrough or two, this attack really caught me off guard and definitely made this guy a lot harder. And overall, I have to say he's the first boss in this game that I consider to be pretty good around like a B tier fight. And considering we're not even halfway through the list, I'd say this is pretty good. And let's get on to the next boss. All right, next up on the list is going to be Baerial. And fun fact, this is actually one of my first bosses I've ever fought in a game ever. Like I didn't complete DMC4 until a couple of years ago, but I played a little bit of it when a long time ago, like around like 2011, 2012, and this guy definitely holds a special place in my heart because I think he's the only guy I remember actually beating in this game. I don't know why I dropped this game, but I had a lot of fun beating this guy, I remember. Anyway, it's an honor to get to rank this guy, and I just want to talk about. I like him a lot since his sword attacks and his backslammer attack are just a joy to counter. And the generous stun widow he has is also solid, with this guy being like the first real boss fight, and it makes it a little easier. Also, the health orbs drop throughout the fight make this guy a really good intro boss again. Like at least on the lower difficulties. Of course, like the higher difficulties, he doesn't really drop any health orbs at all. My main critiques of this fight, though, are that I believe the dodge windows on some of his attacks are a little unfair. Like for example, I find it difficult to like dodge his massive explosion, especially compared to like Goliath in DMC5, who has a really similar move. And also when he spawns flames out of the ground, I think the timing just has to be a little too precise. And I found this move very difficult to dodge. I don't think I've ever dodged it successfully, since the flames really track so well. And overall, to sum him up, I really love this guy. But again, I wish like these dodge windows for those two moves were a little more generous. And I do have to say though, I absolutely love this guy. Like other than those two moves, I think his design is really brilliant, and the arena is really cool. Like inspired kind of like a Western film, which I think is kind of an odd choice, but I think it looks really cool. And despite his lower spot in the list, I consider this guy an incredible boss. And I'd say he's like the first A tier boss of this game. I think he's really good. It's just this game has so many good bosses, so I kind of have to rank this guy a little lower, partly due to my critiques of him. And on to the next boss. All right, and coming in at fifth place, we're gonna have everybody's favorite frog boss, or bosses. It's gonna be Bael and Dagon. I have to say, I always have a lot of fun with this boss since it's really rare to see like a good frog boss in a video game. Also, I have to say, I think the Angler ladies are just so unique, and they really elevate this fight in both aesthetic and making the boss feel truly special. As I think they're just a really, again, a clever mechanic, and it is pretty fun. Like for example, the Angry Ladies have a lot of unique moves themselves, and again, they make the fight feel special. And their freeze grab makes it so you can't just like mindlessly spam them. And the fact that there are two of them, where if you're spamming one too much, the other one might grab you. This can of course be mitigated if you use your double trigger when you're frozen, but when you don't have double trigger, it kind of sucks to have them just jump at you and get a free hit on you. I will say my only real critique of the anglers though is I feel like they fly around the arena too much. They're kind of too passive. Where I wish they were a little more aggressive and that make it easier to get hits on them. I will say though, I do love it though that you can grab one of the anglers if you stun it, and it'll pull Bael or Dagon in the process. You can deal a lot of hits this way, and the boss reanimation is just super cool for this. As for Bael or Dagon though, they have some pretty good moves themselves. Like the freeze and jump and melee attacks are all pretty serviceable. And the time in between phases I think is pretty good. It gives you some chance for range attacks if you know what you're doing before he like blows on the arena, like covering himself up again and summoning his ladies, which I'd say this is a pretty serviceable move and kind of gives this fight like some good pacing. Also, dodging his jump like grab, like where he tries to get you his mouth after you damage the angler ladies a lot is a fun move to dodge. And I usually just use double trigger, but sometimes I'll dodge out of the way, and usually I'm pretty successful doing this. And that's all I have to really say for this guy. He is very memorable, but he is pretty simple as well. But I have a lot of fun with him, and his uniqueness, also the arena's cool. Like I like snow a lot, so it's kind of cool to fight him like that snowy like Fortuna Castle. And I think that's all I really have to say. So on to the next boss. All right, now we reach the top four, and I swear this is just a coincidence, but the bosses take a noticeable jump in quality here. Like all of these bosses, I think have a case for being the best in the game. Like I think they're all really good. Again, I kind of said this in my Stranger Paradise video, coincidentally for the top four. So I don't just say that about every game. It's just both these games coincidentally had a top four that were really good. So anyway, to start off the top four, we're gonna have the last fight with Sanctus. And I have to say, should I really put this guy like that ahead of the variant with the Savior? I said yes. Like a lot of people, I think rank these guys as the same boss fight, but I don't, just because they're different enough. And I enjoy this one clearly better than these first fights, so that's why I rank them separately. Also, I have to say, I mostly put this guy ahead of that version as well, due to just his arena being a lot cooler in this fight, especially because he's the final boss. I think he definitely fits being a fitting final boss. And also, again, the Savior doesn't interrupt the flow of this fight, which I think it makes this fight just so much better than that one. Also, again, just a review of like what I like about the first fight that's good in this fight as well. Like I like the concept of attacking him as he's like shielded and beating down his shield in order to get some hits on him. Also, I think his range attacks are pretty good. And grappling to get close to him with the bells he kind of summons, I again also think that's a really good mechanic again. Also, another unique addition to this fight I really like is that he uses Devil Sport Sparta. And of course, this is a cool weapon already for like the series. And I like how he uses it kind of as a block at first, and he can get like a hit on you if you like aren't careful enough and don't dodge like his hit after the block. And also, like I like how after he breaks his shield, he kind of uses it like in the air to block as well. But I like how you can kind of beat him down as long as you figure out how to like you keep doing damage so hard. And the tone of this fight feels really good when you're just doing it inside the main story. It's of course fun to beat him down as Virgil as well. Yeah, like I assume all the other characters as well, but that's really all I have to say for this guy. And let's get on to our number three boss. All right, the number three boss is going to be the Devil Hunter we all know and love. Let's give it up for Dante. Now, this fight isn't quite my favorite of the game, but I really enjoy it, and I really think it's a really well done boss fight. Like, his difficulty is just so ridiculous. I think it definitely makes this fight, like, really worthy boss fight for sure that I definitely have to rank highly. Like, I originally put him below the final version of Sanctus, but I refought him and I kind of learned more of like his mechanics and how to counter them, and I just had a lot of fun fighting him. And I have to say, part of the reason I have fun fighting him is, of course, he can switch styles on the fly, which is makes him engaging. You have to prepare for what's next. And also, his long range attacks are very deadly for his guns, like Ebony and Ivory, especially when he shoots you from like long range. I find that a little difficult to dodge if you're not prepared for it, and he can definitely get a few free hits in through that. And his melee swings adapt really well to what you're doing at close range, which I find to make this fight really hard. Like for example, if you do like a swing down to up, like he'll do the same thing and do it later than you and get a few free hits on you. Or I mean up to down kind of up to down swing is the main one that he does this for. But there's quite a few moves that he'll adapt to that you do. But like a good strategy is like use your buster at like perfect timings, and that can get you a decent amount of free hits, or somehow like wait until the end of one of his combos and then strike, and then get a few free hits and then a buster, which I think is just really good strategy with Nero. And I had a lot of fun fighting this guy, this version of Dante of Virgil too. And again, another reason I like him and find him so challenging is a lot of his hits are just the first hit or two in a combo, where if you get hit by him, you're almost guaranteed to be hit a few times, which makes them again very, very difficult and a very enjoyable fight that has just so many moves to master counters to. And it definitely makes it one of the most mechanically intricate fights in this game. And I think for that, it's worthy of its spot in the top three. It isn't quite my favorite because I like the other two a little better. And I don't like this fight quite as much as the Dante fight in Devil May Cry 5, but I still really like it, so let's get on to the next boss. Alright, now we reach our second place boss, which is going to be Echidna. And I have to say, there's a lot of good snake bosses in video games, but Echidna holds up to any of them. She's just a really good boss. She has a lot of fast-moving, really aggressive attacks, like her tail swipe, that are pretty fun to dodge. And her flying around the arena is enjoyably chaotic. And that's also kind of fun to dodge around, and kind of, if you're playing as Nero, just like grabbing her and try to keep pace with her is a good way of dodging this. Also, downtime you get when she decides to stand above you is pretty good, where she kind of just puts that pod below her, and that does you get a decent amount of free hits, and there's even an enemy to kill below her that can give you some free health, which makes the fight a little easier if you're not as skilled at the game, which I really like. And also, you can even get on top of her during this, which I really like. It's Hard to do, you gotta jump at like the right time, but it's fun getting the 3 hits this way. It kind of rewards a little bit of skill. It's just looking a little cooler and just like being a little more fun. I'm not sure if it does any more damage, but I really like doing this when I can. Also, I have to say, when she plants herself in the ground, her tendril attacks that she spawns out of the ground are pretty fun to dodge. Like, they'll sometimes hit towards you or they'll hit in a circle, where it's nice to kind of just hog Echidna, basically, and get some good melee hits in. I really like that. And she'll even, like, use her, like, head tendrils to kind of hit you, which these make you have to be careful. And also, she'll eventually snap her snake head when she's sick of you hitting her, which kind of makes it so you can't be too aggressive, but this phase does reward aggression, but you gotta like not be too aggressive, and it feels a good boss design. Also, her pod shooting attack is pretty good at towards the end of the fight as well. And again, her tail swipes are always pretty fun to dodge in a normal phase. And also, you gotta be wary of the head tendril attacks in a normal phase as well, and not just like the phase where she plants herself in the ground, which I like. And overall, it's really off to say. Ignita has a lot of satisfying moves, and she is very tanky, and she has a good enough amount of stun windows to get some combos in. And overall, I think this is why it makes her a really good boss and worthy of the second spot of this game. All right, now we have to reach our number one spot, and this guy, a lot of you probably predict is the number one in this video. I could say like this guy's probably the overwhelming favorite of this game for good reason. And this boss is going to be Angelo Credo at the number one spot. Alright, there's no question that this boss is absolutely incredible. One of his attacks that I really like is the Spear attack, which is a very good long range attack. And I love that as Nero, you can throw it back at him with Nero's Buster, but the timing has to be really precise for this, making it a fight that you really have to weigh your options for, since like there are windows to counter his attacks, but they're so slim you have to decide whether to dodge them or whether to actually counter back. It's similar to like a fight like Virgil in DMC5, where it is really difficult, but it does reward skilled play a lot. Also, I have to say, Kratos' block feels really good to go up against, and him reacting to hitting him when you think you might have him stunned with either like a shield slam or like a full-on melee combo is absolutely brilliant design. And also, sword attacks in response to trying to break his shield, along with his melee attacks to do range damage, are also incredibly fun to counter. And one of my favorite combos he actually has is one you unlock later in the fight when you do enough damage, where he does 2 aerial slashes that do a lot of range damage, and he also does one like direct charge at you with his sword. And I think this is a really fun combo to jump to avoid or even dodge roll through. I do find the jump the most effective for this though. The last attacks I want to mention that I think are pretty good in this fight is towards the end of the fight he'll launch like some small blades at you that I think are fun to dodge, and also even at the beginning of the fight, like he'll spawn them around you, kind of like Virgil spawns like a summon swords, and I find it really fun to like slash them to get them off you basically instead of dodge rolling out of them. Overall, to sum up this guy, I have to say this guy wants to make you get better at the game with his brilliant mechanical depth. With him basically being a really good version of like the Shield Knights as like a boss. And overall, this makes him the best boss in this game, and one of the best bosses in the whole DMC series for me. And that's all I have to say. Alright, that's going to do it for the video. I really hope you all enjoy this boss ranking. Again, all the rankings are just my opinions, where I'd like to know if you disagree with me in the comments. Like, I hope my ranking wasn't really bad, though. Like, I say this about every boss ranking video I do. Like, just let me know if my takes are really off. Like, for example, maybe you like the Agnes room the best, and maybe me putting it towards the bottom isn't the best idea, but anyway, I'd just like to hear what you guys think. And again, a lot of objective criticism would be nice. This is one of my first few boss rankings still, where I'm still kind of figuring out how exactly I want to make these videos. And let me know also, like, do you think I like talk too much about every boss? I notice I talk around like 2 minutes for every boss, no matter how little there is to talk about. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'd like to hear your opinion on this, because I realized I thought this video would be less than 20 minutes long, but it's kind of ballooned to about like the 25-minute mark. Anyway, though, I think that's all I have to say for the most part. I am in the future going to try and do a few other boss rankings for games. It might be a few months before my next video, but I'm planning to do Jedi Fallen Order and Elden Ring at some point in the future, and I might do like Metal Gear Rising at some point. I haven't finished that game yet, but that'd be one I want to do. And also Devil May Cry 3 I haven't really finished yet, but I'd also like to do a ranking for that. I maybe want to do like a definitive of like the 3 through 5 Devil May Cry boss ranking because those are like the fairly modern games in the series. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I think that's a really good place to end the video. So have a good day, my fellow Devil Hunters. I really hope you enjoyed the video and take care.